As I grew older, I began to sometimes painful process by which a son distances himself from his father in preparation for striking out on his own. I began to realize that my father, the man, and my father, the legend, were not always one and the same. The legend was all-powerful, fearless in the face of any challenge or adversity, and incapable of mistakes in judgment or unfairness in dealings with lesser mortals. The man, like most men approaching their twilight years, was not as strong as he had once been, occasionally showed signs of self-doubt, and made his share of errors when interacting with other people. From the time I was a little boy, he had delighted in balling up his fists and playfully going several rounds with me. He continued the game after I started high school, but by the time I was 15 or 16, my reflexes had become sharper than his, and I became uncomfortable exchanging mock punches with him. It's interesting, and I watched a few interviews with Lou Polar Jr., and he's not. It might sound like he's being disparaging by saying there was the legend and then there was the real man, but he comes clearer in the book. He's not being disparaging at all. He definitely in some of the interviews I watched with him, he's explaining like, no, it's not a negative thing. It's just that everyone thought Chesty Polar was this legendary thing, but it was the man that he knew as his dad, and that man was more important and a better human being and all that. So he's not being disparaging by saying that there was a difference between the two. He's just stating that there was a difference. Yeah. But as Lou Polar's going through this rebellious stage, back to the book, I also began to be bothered by the waste of my father's considerable talent and an inordinate amount of time he spent on trivial undertakings. My father spent hours sitting at the dining room table playing solitaire or rereading books that he had owned for many years. Mother was busy running the house and raising Virginia, Martha, and me, while there were days during which my father did nothing more than make an occasional trip to the corner store or fetch the mail. He was easy to have around the house and was almost totally undemanding of his children. But it seemed to me that this living legend should have more important things to do than serve as an errand boy for my mother. I did not realize that the Marine Corps had been his whole life, and that in committing himself so totally to its mission, he had never had the time for hobbies or other outside interests. I also did not see until I was much older that my father's stroke had taken a physical toll on him that he would never acknowledge.